I was just thinking, one of my first questions is going to be, well, it can be now, in fact, was we go back to lockdown, don't we? The number of sessions you did on lockdown, streaming sessions when I first discovered Emma Wilson, and you were in a slightly different style. You were more rock blues based then, that you've kind of edged back towards, in the nicest way, respectability.
Never. Um, do you know, it's funny, Clive, when I was working out, as in gigging out with bands, we have so many great guitarists in this country. So my career sort of leaned, my gigs and my choice of songs leaned towards working alongside guitar based lineups. And I
Yeah,
think that's probably why I ended up going down that route, because I was choosing repertoire that was more geared towards the guitar, bass, drums lineup.
yeah,
And and then during lockdown, of course, I did the acoustic EP, which was guitar vocals. Then during lockdown, with everything that was going on, I found this great piano player, and I did the piano vocal album. Do you remember I did Feel Good?
yeah,
And that was done remotely. And that started to open me up to going back to the more elegant soul sound.
yeah,
And I think people like yourself and other DJs, and that got so many plays, and it almost got played more than the acoustic album. And I thought, hang on, they like this sound, and I like this sound. And it kind of rumbled on from there. And I thought, there's something about doing what you know, Clive, isn't there?
yeah. There's a
My
comfort.
first, my first records I chose for myself, as you know, having spoken to me before, were the Ann Peebles, Stax, High, Chess. They were my sort of grounding of music. And I think it was only when I went out and started gigging that I sort of fell into the more rocky side, and you just get taken along. But I
Yeah.
think I've had the confidence to go back to what I know, what I think I know,
Yeah,
what I
and it
think I
worked.
know.
Yeah, and of course, Wishing You Well did so well. It's still doing well, I'm sure, and getting lots of plays and all of the charts and things. That was another major step for you this time last year.
It was. So lockdown gave me chance to mentally breathe, think, be more creative. And I did write that album, Wish Her Well, into my mobile phone. And I was lucky enough to be able to make it, to bring it to fruition with three excellent, very sympathetic to my sound musicians. And we made a great album. And I was just intending to release that album myself on DistroKid and promote it myself. And through the wonders of the internet, I got spotted by Frank Roszak, the American publicist,
Yeah,
who was looking after Eliza Neals at the time and a lot of other sort of really cooking new acts. And he found me on Facebook and said, I love this Wish Her Well album. He he'd heard it before it was released, because I'd sent it to lots of different people thinking, somebody might pick it up. So I sort of flash mobbed everybody I knew. And he was the only person that came back and said, look, you need to meet Johnny Phillips and he might distribute it for you. And Johnny Phillips of Selecto Hits decided to distribute Wish Her Well. And what that meant for me was, A, I had a great publicist representing me in America who had lots of contacts internationally. And B, I had the the team at Selecto Hits doing all my digital. Um, they linked me up with Proper Music UK, who distributed in Europe, and it just did things that I couldn't have done myself. Regardless of how good the album I thought it was, I didn't have the tools and the facility
yeah,
to make it really happen. So being with Selecto Hits and Frank kind of pushed me to the next level.
yeah. Yeah. Funnily enough, this is going to, because it's going to be a print interview as well as a broadcast. If I can squeeze it into radio as well. How it all began is an important factor, Emma, in the stepping stones you've made to now live the dream by recording in a Memphis album with great musicians and having the ultimate, to my ears, album of the year so far.
Wow, thank you, Clive. Oh, don't get me emotional. Um, so yeah, so Wish Her Well came out, and I had never met Johnny Phillips. And strange things happen in your life. My father dying in 2014 was a huge factor in the way I thought about life. And I just thought, there are so many special people in my life that I want to meet, shake their hand, give them a hug. Who knows what's going to happen to me, to whoever. So the stars sort of really aligned. And I was lucky enough to be able to go over to Nashville in January to write with Gary Burr, who is a tremendous songwriter, happens to be an old friend of my brother's from 30 years ago, and has always sort of seen me as Simon's kid sister. He was interested in my career, and we ended up writing together. So I was in Nashville in January, working in his studio for a week, and we wrote 4 songs, 2 of which are on the album. And I just hopped on the Greyhound and went to Memphis. And I told them I was coming. I didn't just knock on the door. And I turned up at Selecto Hits, took an Uber, turned the corner, saw this great big white building with the big record on the front and Selecto Hits, that iconic label, and just walked in and hi. And Johnny said, "You've come 6,000 miles just to see us?" And I said, "Yeah, pretty much, yeah, via Nashville." And they couldn't have been more welcoming. The Phillips family are totally cool. They're not affected by the fact that, I went to the supermarket this morning and you've got rock and roll Elvis playing, every part of our being, it
Yeah.
is touched by what that family, what their father did,
Yeah.
Sam Phillips. But they're totally unaffected by that as people. They are kind, generous, warm. And we did a podcast, Johnny and I, and it was filmed. And Johnny's a tremendously lovely man, very sharp, great businessman, brilliant. And he said, "You know what, Emma? We've just acquired the Stax desk at Sam Phillips," because I was going on about Stax, and I'd been at the museum the day before, and he said, "You should really come and record at Sam Phillips." And those words went in and sort of cooked, and sort of my head started buzzing, and I'm thinking, right, when? Tomorrow? And I came back from Memphis with this idea in my head that the seed had been planted, and I just set the wheels in motion. When can I come back? When can I do it?
When was it done, Emma?
So they basically said, so Johnny Phillips is Selecto Hits. Jeff Phillips, who is Sam Phillips' son, Jeff and his daughter Hallie run the studio, own the studio. So they said to me, "Look, you can bring a producer, you can bring a band, bring whoever you want. We know you've got contacts in Nashville." Well, I didn't really have a producer or a band in America. So I kind of thought, come on, Emma, you can make this work. Think sensibly. So I realized that Scott Bomar was the studio manager. And I thought, hang on, this is perfect. He's the studio manager. He's just refurbished the desk. He's on site. He's in the Bow Keys. He's an absolute geek about the music. Will you do it? So I said, "Do you think Scott would be interested?" And there we are. Me and Scott got in touch. We had a few Zoom meetings and we clicked. It was almost like it was a bit of a separated at birth moment,
Yeah.
because he's like me. He's fair. He's quite sort of, we always could be cousins to look at. It's quite strange. We're a similar age. We dig the same music, but we're also coming from the place of, we are honoring, we are very respectful and sort of like, wow, we are getting to work with Leroy Hodges, Charles Hodges. He worked with Howard Grimes for a long time, and so we're kind of both a bit like, this is great, isn't it? Let's just enjoy this. And Scott and I got on incredibly well, but more importantly, we loved the same music. We said to each other, right, top 5 albums that you want, that you like. And it was like, The Faces, Not As Good As a Wink to a Blind Horse, Anne Peebles, Blind Faith. There was a mixture of soul and rock and blues and Englishness and Stax and just anything from Stax, anything from High.
Yeah.
And we just clicked, and he said, yeah, I'd like to make this album. And then of course he said, who do you want on it? And I said, just the A team. Whoever wants to be on it, that just, and he was like, give me a week. So I was in the car park at Tesco's and my WhatsApp rang, and it was Scott. Bear in mind, they're 6 hours behind.
Yeah.
And he said, I won't do his accent, but it was a slow southern, the Memphian, hi, Emma, I have some good news. And this pause. And he said, I've got you a band. And it was just the list. Charles, Leroy, hubby, Steve Potts on drums. Ah, my God. Joe Restivo played guitar, who is one of the hippest young guitarists in Memphis, and Kirk Smothers and Mark Franklin on horns. And I just sat in the car park in Gisborough in North Yorkshire on the phone going, right, okay, amazing. And I said, I'm a little bit worried. And he said, why are you worried? And I said, am I going to be able to do this? And he said, yeah. I'm getting emotional. I just said, can I do it?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. And he said, you're going to love them and they're going to love you.
Yeah.
And that's what he said. And then from that point, I had to think, game on, girl. It's game on. Get your feet on the ground and get this happening. And then then literally 3 weeks later, I was on the plane. It's emotional, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You couldn't write a story like that, could you? These things just sort of happen.
Yeah, they do. But like I say, with lockdown and losing my dad, and then realizing that life's transient, just take that opportunity and almost worry about it later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I dug deep and thought of all the musicians I've worked with. My great friend Chris Fletcher, who was the percussionist with Morrissey Mullen. I was in his review band for years, and the things I learned from working with that band, timing, groove, how to deliver a song, how to wait, how to know that the space is most important. I literally dug all that up and went, Emma, you've done this. You can do this with the best. Don't beat yourself up. And I put myself into sort of almost a catatonic state mentally. Is that the right word? You know what I mean? Like
suspended an emotion.
Go with it. Yeah, go with it.
Yeah.
And then of course we had to pick the songs. And I said to Scott, do you have somebody to write charts out? And he went, no, these guys don't use charts. So I was like, that's good, because I don't write charts.
Yeah.
So me and Scott basically did send each other's clips. We had the demos from Gary Burr. So Gary and I had recorded the 2 songs that we used with guitar. So really, they took the originals from the guitar vocal tracks, and Scott developed them. I mean, I can see Steve Potts in the room. He writes things down, but you don't see what he writes down. And it's all like semaphore or whatever he writes down, not semaphore, but you know, like little codes. And he's
Yeah.
always smiling, Steve Potts. So, and then Charles just goes into this sort of like calm listening state, and then it all comes together. It was magical.
That comes across in the recording, Emma, even from what I've heard now. And the other thing, the key thing you mentioned there, which is so vital in music, is space. The Memphis sound, especially the Hive Studios and the Stack Studios, and Muscle Shoals to a degree, you haven't got to be all of a with music. You've got to let the music breathe. And these guys, and with your good self and the vocals, it breathes to perfection, Emma. You leave the space there. The gaps between the notes do a lot of the talking. The listener can get into it. And basically, you smashed it.
Thank you. That's amazing. Do you realise it's my first interview? And I think
Really?
you're the first journalist DJ that's heard the whole album.
I'm privileged.
No one else has heard it. Clive, it means a lot to me because, you know, it's not lost to me your experience in this genre. So I arrived at Sam Phillips on the Monday morning. It was hot. I got a taxi up Madison to 639. And even saying 639 Madison Avenue to the taxi driver was wild.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm going to, where are you going, ma'am? 639 Madison Avenue. Oh, the Sam Phillips recording studio? Yes. And it was, I had to sit in that cab on my own going, okay. And I turned up and I got out of the cab into this sweltering blanket of heat and paid the cabbie. And the building's an old 1950s, very low building. It was a muffler shop, as you probably know. And there was a guy up a ladder painting the front of the building. And he was the first person I came across, and his name is Lynn. And he's been working with and for the Phillips family all his life. He's probably, I mean, respectfully, Lynn, in his 60s, maybe even older.
Yeah.
So he's up a ladder, and I can't get in the door because he's up a ladder. Yeah. And he said, oh, hi, ma'am. Who are you looking for? And it was all like I'd stepped into this 1950s movie, Clive. And it was, and I said, Scott Bomar. And Scott was at the door. The door's glass.
Yeah.
And Scott was there smiling. Hi, you know. And I walked in and I just had to take a breath. I said, I need a moment, you know. And that the building's got a real aura about it. So you go in, and then you've got he proudly walked me into the live room, which is huge. It's probably 60 by 40 feet. It's
wow.
Maybe even bigger. It's long. And it's almost like the photographs I sent you this morning.
Yeah.
I wanted you to know what it looks like and how it felt for me when I went in. The chairs, those little brass hooks in the recording booth.
Yeah.
They were the original ones Sam put in 1958. It is just incredible, but not missing any of the technical necessities. You know, it's got everything there.
Yeah.
To record, you know, they've got the desk, they've got the live room, they've got the drums, they've got all those keyboards. So we had 2 days pre-production. And then day 3, dum, 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 da, the musicians arrived. And by then I was kind of, yeah, this is my office for the week. I'm cool. I knew where the kettle was, you know. Jerry Phillips had arrived. He'd been traveling, and he was like, just said, you're so welcome and we're pleased to have you here. And then the cab started arriving. Charles Hodges, looking fabulous, quite slender, dripping in turquoise, gorgeous turquoise jewelry, but the kind of, you know, the rock and roll. He had like a football shirt on with 39 written on it, you know, very cool, like a young 20-year-old. Hello. And he said, are you the artiste? And he took both of my hands like this and didn't kiss me or anything, just like, you know. I said, I am the artiste, yes. And he went in, and the first thing he did, Clive, he just walked in the live room, switched on the Leslie, and just sat at the keyboard. He'd only been there a minute and a half. Then Leroy comes in. Leroy's very tall, statuesque, broad shoulders, quiet. Hi. Leroy comes in, plugs in. Hubby, what a character. Have you met Hubby Turner?
No.
What a character. Hilarious. Great fun. He comes in, gets on the piano, and then Steve Potts. Okay, Emma. Yeah, Steve Potts. And I shook his hand, and those big, gorgeous, strong hands that played all these. Imagine what his hands have done. And then Joe Restivo is kind of the like young guy. Hey, Emma, how you doing? You know. And there they were. And they basically said, okay, what are we doing? And within 20 minutes, we were rolling. No chit chat. And so I felt totally, this is professional. This is real. We're on. So by now I was like, okay. And the first track we did was Water.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I know it, they know it. And you can tell that song Water, although it's later on in the album, it's second on in the album, I can feel when I listen back to it, it's got that freshness. Like these people have come together to make something great. And it's going do 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 do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those songs where when Cropper did it himself on the Jam Together album, it's kind of a typical Southern song, isn't it, Water? It really oozes the Deep South.
Well, I had the 101 Stacks CD, which is 5 CDs. And building up to doing the record, I had it in the car and I was like, just pick something that jumps out to you. And that song kept jumping out to me. And then it's really weird. I was watching TV very late at night, and on BBC4 there was an interview with the guy from the Stones, Ronnie Wood.
Yeah.
Was interviewing Steve Cropper.
Oh yeah.
On BBC4 about 3 a.m. And I thought, oh crumbs, I'll watch this. And just at the end of the interview, Steve Cropper says, you know what, Ronnie, we've not spoken about my favorite song, Water.
Oh.
And I'm going, looking around the room, there's nobody there. This is weird. And he said, it's the only song they let me sing on. How funny is that? And he played the riff in front of Ronnie Wood. And Ronnie's going, yeah, man. And I thought, well, that's it. That's going to be the number. And the lads loved it. The band loved it. So that was my choice for one cover for Stax. And of course, I Still Love You was performed by the great Ann Peebles.
Yes.
Written by Willie Mitchell. And of course, all these musicians and had worked with Willie Mitchell.
Yeah.
Popper.
Yeah.
Popper.
That's the man, Popper. Yeah.
So they'd say, yeah, we used to do this with Popper. And so I wanted to do one of Anne's that was not the most obvious one, that showed her vulnerability, that showed my vulnerability. And also that was another one that Scott Bomar said he'd been wanting to record for 10 years. So I Still Love You was another cover. And then Hoochie
Yeah.
I didn't want to do an obvious blues. And Scott said to me, you really need to do, I mean, in England, we'd say a banger, wouldn't we? A good, they don't say that in America. He said, you need to do a song that's going to get you noticed by the blues festivals.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. That's what he said. That's what he said. And he said, I said, oh, I don't want to do an obvious like cover. And he went, okay, Emma, just imagine you're at the Lafayette, which is a club in Memphis.
Yeah.
I saw Samantha Fish there in January. She was amazing. So Scott
Hang on a
said,
minute, Emma. Oh, yeah. Hello. Okay, right. I'm doing the Zoom with Emma. Okay. Right. Sorry about that.
all right. So Scott said to me, just imagine you're at the Lafayette and Steve Potts is counting you off. What song are you going to do? And I said, Hoochie Coochie Mama. And he went, right, we're going to do it. So we checked out the Etta James version on YouTube with,
Yeah.
this happened on the day, by the way, with Robert Cray and all the musicians are going, oh, there's Robert. And oh man, look at so-so. They knew all the band. And of course, their version starts with that ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. It's got like a very distinctive intro.
Yeah.
And the musicians, the band that I was working with in America were like, yeah, let's do it our own way. Let's do it Emma's way. Let's do our own version and let's make it our own way. And I think that song was recorded with me standing in the middle on an SM58. And I sang that song on the SM58. And Scott sat back in the live room and he went, you know what, Emma? I set you up a $20,000 microphone and you went and did that on a $200 SM58.
But again, you turned the song into your own, Emma. It's not a Bo Diddley song. It's not a Willie Dixon song. It's an Emma Wilson song, and you really lived it.
Thank you. And I think the fact that we say mama, of course, Etta James says gal, and
yeah,
somebody along the line, it could have even been you that said say mama. Mama's kind of mama, when I used to do it, when I do it live. And hubby Turner was after we finished that number, obviously you pause. We recorded everything live, so we're standing all together playing, and then you play the end, da, and then you've got to. I always freeze, like,
yeah.
Don't sneeze, don't cough, don't fall over. And Hubby Turner sat back on his chair, and his chair squeaked, and he went, "She's not from Middlesboro, she's from Mississippi." And I just thought, this is totally bizarre. And I said, well, I don't know about that. I'm proud to be from Middlesbrough, but it's a huge compliment. Hubby's really, really funny and incredible musician. What I loved about Hubby Turner and Charles Hodges was the way they worked together as, you've got an organ and an acoustic piano and Wurlitzer. They are seamless together. I mean, they've got so much history together that they are brilliant together.
They have their minds gelled. They don't need to say what's going on. They know what's going on.
And I think that's why I was able to do a good job, because I was just enveloped by these brilliant men who just created this soulful, beautiful, sort of comforting environment. And they brought everything that they've done from when they were young teenagers. Hubby talking about how Papa Willie Mitchell used to put them out on the road all over the States, and he used to wear we used to compete who had the craziest suit, who could do the biggest backflips. And Hubby was talking about when he was a young man, and one thing I learned from working with the great Terry Reid, who also co-wrote one of the songs, and being friends with Pete Brown, God rest his soul. You know, we've just lost Pete Brown.
Yeah.
People like Pete Brown and Terry Reid, when I worked with them, all they wanted to do was move forward. They wanted to do what's happening now. Yeah, they want to talk about, Terry talks about Seed of Memory. Pete used to talk about Cream, you know, if he was, you know, pushed. But what they wanted to do was create new music. So I went into this setting with Charles Hodges, Leroy Hodges, Hubby Turner, with that in mind. Let me give something to them in the respect that I am a new artist. I'm creating new music, and I want them to be part of it. They don't need anything from me, but I think they were excited to be on something new, sparky. They love the fact that I was English. They
Yeah.
love the fact that I brought an Englishness to it, and I tried very hard not to Americanize my voice, my
Yeah.
accent. And they were kind of, they enjoyed that aspect of it. They told me afterwards, you know, this is exciting.
And it is one more cover that we haven't mentioned, Since I Fell for You, the Ella Johnson tribute. There's a reason behind that as well, I'm sure.
Clive, I'd never heard of Ella Johnson. Do you know what happened?
Tell me.
I was sitting in the live room, and we were missing 2 songs. So Hoochie became the cover.
Yeah.
And I said, we need a ballad. You know, we've got I Still Love You, but we need a ballad.
Yeah.
And hubby said, who are you into? Get your Spotify open. And I went, oh, I really love Fontella Bass. And he went, yeah, she's cool. You know, it was almost like he was going to say, yes, I had pizza with her in 1974 or something. And the first song that came up was Since I Fell for You. Well, of course, Fontella's version wouldn't have been right for this setting. And we'd broken for a Reuben, a sandwich. And Leroy Hodges came in and went, what's happening? And I said, well, I'm thinking of doing Since I Fell for You. And he went, oh, the Lenny Welch song. So we pulled up the Lenny Welch. Lenny Welch was the first person, I believe, to record it. So we pulled up the Lenny Welch version, and I'd never heard that. When you just give love, da-dee-da-bee-ba. I'd never heard the intro. I only knew Since I Fell for You was You Made Me Leave My Happy Home. So me and Leroy and hubby were in the live room. Charles Hodges came in, like, let's work out a key for you, Emma. And I said, yeah, let's work a key out. And then Steve Potts came in. How do you want it? And I kind of went with my body like, and Steve went, okay. And Clive, we just taped it. And that was the story. And until you mentioned, who was it you mentioned?
Ella Johnson. Ella did it in 1950.
Never heard that version.
Because Lenny's hit was on Cap in about 1962. Lovely.
That was after.
He was a pop balladeer. Lovely voice, Lenny Welch
Gotcha.
had. Lovely voice.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. It's another education. You didn't know about Buddy and Ella Johnson. Buddy Johnson was the band leader. Ella was her sister and the band singer. And they had a huge amount of hits in the early 1950s. Really sort of roots, a bit like Billie Holiday kind of thing.
Well, I'll have to check her out. She was Buddy's sister.
Yeah.
Ah.
Do yourself a favour, because it's a mixture of ballads and rocking rhythm and blues at Ella. Not so much the rocking stuff, but she takes blues upbeat, a bit like the Billie Holiday kind of thing of that era.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
There must be loads you need to ask me. Go on.
I think we've actually had a marvellous half hour. You've told me I'm almost in your head as to how it must have felt like in the studio.
Good. I want to get that across, Clive, because it's only now I'm doing the nuts and bolts. Like, I mean, I'm releasing this myself with distribution from, so I'm doing all the coding, I'm doing all the artwork, I'm doing all the, and sometimes I glance at the personnel and think, flipping heck, did that happen?
Yeah.
And I'm not being like, I'm not making a publicity stunt out of it. I actually feel like that. And I keep thinking, this is mad. And now, of course, we want to put it out on vinyl. It's not
Yeah.
going to be out on vinyl till probably January. We know what's
Yeah.
happening with vinyl, you know. It's taking so long. And Scott's very excited about me going back and doing some gigs with the band.
That would be great, doing this live on stage.
Doing the album with the band, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, hearing them play the originals that me and Gary wrote.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary's a country and western writer. You know,
Yeah.
he's one of the most successful country and western writers ever. And we recorded those demos with him on guitar and me on vocals in his house in Nashville. And A Small Word started, we have conversations that keep us up all night. It was kind of and then we just, when you get that band on it, you get what you get, the opening track of my album,
Yeah.
which was a great song that Gary Burr helped me, we co-wrote, that's turned into this big, fat, horn-laden beast of a song. And I was struggling to sing that because I had in my head the sort of laid-back country version. And I rang my brother at midnight from Memphis and said, I'm struggling to sing this song. And I was singing a light vocal over this big, crunchy Memphis sound. And he went, Emma, Band of Gold. And I said, what do you mean? He said, that's how you now need to sing A Small Word. She's angry. She's peed off. So I went, my God, thank God for you, Simon. And I went back in the next day and I went, we'll have conversations. And like, I hit it. I couldn't get it the day before. I was going, we'll have conversations that keep us up on. Something wouldn't click. As soon as I heard Band of Gold, I was like, bam.
Emma, this has been the easiest and most enjoyable interview I've done in many a long decade almost. But you and I love each other as regards. We're spiritual twins, aren't we? As regards.
We are. We've got to be.
Yeah, and so.
But you have guided me, and please take this on board because, you know, you put stuff out there and you're very honest, and we've had conversations on the phone over the last 3 or 4 years, and I do listen to you. I do listen to what you say.
It's appreciated, and I fell in love with the minute you sent me through the minute I first got the What Kind of Love, and I thought this Emma's fallen into the Memphis groove here with Don.
We haven't even mentioned Don. I mean, that's another story. Well, we were looking. I've got 1 minute. We were looking for songs. Scott Bomar said that me and Don wrote a song. It was on Don's album. Do you want to record it? And I said, it's great. It's perfect. It's even in the right key. Yes. And then I said, do you think Don would sing on it? Then you have this hiatus, these 2 days where there's quiet. Oh my God, please. And then he rang me, he said, I have good news. We have Don on the record.
Oh.
And I just said, and Don arrived in black trousers, black shirt, black pork pie hat, sparky, like a little jumping jack of energy. And he walked in and Leroy Hodges said, he was sitting down, Leroy, and he sort of slightly rose off his chair and said, good afternoon, Mr. B. And Don Bryant looked at Leroy and said, hi, Junior.
Emma,
unbelievable.
My darling, thank you so much for this. You give me the most memorable interview of my lifetime here. We've just laughed, we've grooved. Your music, my ears, and pressing the play button at the right time. We've got there, and this is going to go in Blues in Britain, and I'm sure Nick's going to love it.